Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for nearly 3 decades now, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them start and build successful accounting businesses, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what they're worth. It's here on this show that each and every week we have on the experts, those individuals that can inspire us, help us, guide us as to what it is we can be doing to work on our business to offer those quality services and at the same time retain our clients. Why? Because what we're doing matters. Now, as it relates to the show, we actually have very a wide-ranging array of topics that we actually try to cover. It's things ranging from marketing, selling, training our staff, onboarding the clients. And so we try to really hit all those various areas that we need to consider as we're working on our business. And so today's going to be no exception. I'm excited for our guest. It's someone I've known for a number of years. I've met her on a number of occasions. She might be someone you actually know. It's Ingrid Edstrom. She is the Chief Empowerment Officer at the award-winning consulting firm Priestess of Profits. She is a Woodward certified business coach, a certified positive intelligence mental fitness coach, a certified working genius consultant, and a certified offers and needs marketing facilitator. She has been recognized as one of the accounting profession's top 40 under 40 most powerful women in accounting, top 100 pro advisor, and in 2017, top up and comer pro advisor. And she was featured also in Steve Pipe's book, The World's Most Inspiring Accountants. Ingrid is the leader of the Empower Your Passions Mastermind Group for Accountants through the Roundtables Lab community and founder of the Accounting Alchemy Network, where Ingrid is not just teaching and consulting, she's usually playing her Irish music or frolicking in her with her goats. So Ingrid, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Roger. It's great to be here.
It's going to be fun. It's always a great conversation with you, and it's something I'm looking forward to. So let's give everyone a little bit of context as to how you got into accounting. Let's give a little bit of a backstory here.
I started my little bookkeeping business in 2008 after I quit a toxic day job where I was doing my job and everybody else's job, including the bookkeeper's job, and not getting the recognition or the pay for it. And I jumped ship and started my own business in the middle of the market crash because I saw all these great little companies that were just failing in my local community. And I'm like, I think I might be able to help these people. And it's just been kind of going since then. And yeah, it's kind of interesting because those things that you just rattled off in my bio, I totally Forrest Gumped my way into all of that. Like, I'm not a CPA. I've never taken a formal accounting class at a college in my life. And when CPA Practice Advisor magazine decided to give me those awards, I was like, oh my gosh, total imposter syndrome. I was like, somebody called me a thought leader and I just about hit the floor. I was like, what if they find out that I'm not a CPA and I have no idea what I'm talking about and I'm making all of this up as I go? And then I realized, wait a minute, thought leaders are the ones making stuff up. That's what makes them thought leaders. And there is no limit to the number of thought leaders we can have in the room. What would it look like if we empower everyone to get past their imposter syndrome and step into their thought leadership? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, it's powerful to know that your opinion does matter, that what you have to say actually does make a difference. And so
Mhm.
I think that's one of those empowering things that when you're in that imposter syndrome mindset, you start to self sabotage. You start to assume what I'm saying doesn't matter. My perspective doesn't really apply. So I appreciate the fact that you found your voice, because that's one of the things I'm very much a champion of is in the accounting profession. We need to inspire the accounting professionals to open up a little bit more. Your perspective does matter. Your insights do make a difference with business. So I like what you just shared there. Now, one of the things that I think is very powerful is you said you started this back in 2008. You were one of those that I'm sure many of my listeners can kind of relate to, is the fact that you're doing so much and you're just not getting the recognition. You feel you could do more to actually help the small business community. Therefore, you step out and do this. What was it like to go start your own business? What was the shock that you didn't expect, for example, as you worked into that entrepreneur space?
There were so many. I took the shotgun approach to starting a business because I didn't set out just to be a bookkeeper. It was one of the many things. I was like, I can do bookkeeping and home and office organization and in sitting and all the like. I had 8 different things on one business card and was just trying to
Wow.
see what would stick. And it was the bookkeeping that really jumped out. And so when I joined my local chapter of BNI, Business Network International, I had
Yep.
to choose one thing. And that was the thing that I chose, was to jump into the bookkeeping and have that be the main thing. And it was really at that time before QuickBooks Online was even really like QuickBooks Online really just started getting going in 2008, more 9 and 10.
Yeah.
So I dove in 2008 getting my QuickBooks Desktop certification, and
Oh,
that
okay.
was what
Yeah.
I built my entire business on.
So as you start your business, you said you started the shot with the start shotgun approach. I get that. That's one of the things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs do is I just need to make some money right now, so I'll do anything and everything. But you started to really focus in on a number of things. And one of the things that I'd like to really dive into here is the fact that you really believe that the relationship with the client does matter. And it's
Mhm.
less the transactional experience, it's more the relationship that you're trying to build. It's the fact that accounting is more than numbers. It is still a people's business because we have to interact with our clients. Tell me why it is you feel that the real relationship with the client matters.
Who do we wanna be spending our time with? I mean, if we think about where we're investing our time and the experiences that we wanna have, if we're only focusing our time and energy on building a business to make the money, to pay the rent and buy the food, and we're just running in the hamster wheel. What do we want those experiences to feel like? I want to invest my time with people that I enjoy being around, doing work that is meaningful to me, not just trading my hours for dollars. And so the relationships with clients, I actually started learning a lot of this in BNI, Business Network International, learning to build relationships around knowing and liking and trusting other people and having reciprocal referral relationships. But then also, after 5 years in BNI, I ended up leaving my local chapter because I was recognizing that most of my best referrals were coming from other accounting professionals. And BNI is a closed networking group, meaning there's only one person for each professional classification allowed in a chapter.
That's right.
And I realized that I really needed to be networking with more accounting professionals. And it was when I went to my first Scaling New Heights conference
Oh,
in
yeah.
2015 that my entire world changed. So thanks, Joe Woodard. I appreciate that.
So, with regards to your conference experience, I'm a big proponent of going to conferences. I attend a number of them every year. What is it about a conference experience that you feel is, let's say, beneficial from a career point of view, but more importantly, from a business point of view?
Oh, there's so many things. When I went to my first Scaling New Heights in 2015, which was in New Orleans, which was fantastic,
I remember that
um,
one.
it was, Katie Peterson who talked me into going. She was in a BNI chapter up in the Portland area, and we had connected online, and I was really nervous. I had just earlier that fall talked myself out of going to the first QuickBooks Connect because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be surrounded with a bunch of older, smart, well-dressed, wealthy, successful accountants." I had no idea what the culture was gonna be like. I
Uh-huh.
just I assumed that I was gonna be surrounded by a bunch of men in suits and that they were gonna take one look at this young redheaded bookkeeper and be like, "What the heck is she doing here?" And then I went to Scaling New Heights and I was like, "Oh my gosh, these are my people. This is amazing." And so getting out of that, but then also seeing where it's like, "Oh, wait, some of the things that I'm already doing are working.
Mhm.
And some of these people are asking me what I'm doing and what's working for me. And I actually have things to share here." And also acknowledging that when I went to my first conference in 2015, I was a Luddite. I went to my first conference in 2015 with a prepaid flip phone because I figured I spend all my time at my computer in my office with a landline next to me. Why on earth would I want to pay a monthly subscription for a smartphone that I'm just never going to use? That's not worth it. And then I traveled and that changed. And then I met all of the apps. Some of the ones that blew me away at that time in 2015 were T Sheets,
Oh, yeah.
Practice Ignition,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, just seeing Practice Ignition there in their spacesuits, like these were baby businesses who were just getting started. T Sheets was pretty brand new. This was well before QuickBooks purchased them.
Yep.
All of their teams were so excited, and I was just blown away by the technology
Yeah.
and
No.
realized that I needed to totally just flip things upside down. And I
Yeah.
got back and changed everything in like 3 months.
Yeah, one of the things I want to emphasize is, like you, I've experienced the vendor area of the conferences, and it's amazing to me what they're doing there to actually help service the accounting community. There's a lot of new insights, a lot of new technologies, and it's just basically one of those awe-inspiring, wow, there's a lot happening here. What should I tap into to further help either my own business or my clients? And so there's a lot there to consider, but it helps you stay on the cutting edge because you can see where the industry, if you will, the profession is going.
Mhm.
Now, if I remember right, when I first met you years ago, this would have been about 2015. This is just a flashback. I'm remembering you had a puppet.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about the puppet because I, like you, I actually used to have a puppet as well. So I'm going to
Really?
start with that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would say that maybe we can have our puppets meet sometime because that was a thing, but I divorced my puppeteer, and so, I'm the puppet's in the closet behind me, actually.
Uh huh.
So I had just a fun, silly little thing. It actually started with the BNI group. I had a YouTube channel called Ask a Bookkeeper, where I was doing bookkeeping and business tutorial videos with puppets, and it's essentially like Sesame Street for business owners.
Yeah.
And it was actually just a few months after that first Scaling New Heights that Intuit launched their first Firm of the Future contest, which they
Yes.
only ended up doing for a few years.
Uh huh.
But that very first year, it was a video contest. And I was like, oh, all of these criteria for the Firm of the Future, doing value pricing,
Hmm.
being on social media and, using all these different apps and technology. I'm doing all of those things as of 3 months ago when I went to Scaling New Heights. I'm going to toss my hat in this ring and see what happens. And I ended up getting third place into its first Firm of the Future contest. And they asked me to come and be at QuickBooks Connect after I chickened out of going to QuickBooks Connect the previous year.
Yep.
And then they asked me to go to SleaderCon
Yeah.
and
I remember that.
yep, be on stage at SleaderCon. I think that might actually be where we met. Was at SleaderCon. But yeah, it was good, silly fun. It was a way to just um get out there and be artistic and imaginative in the accounting space. And it ended up attracting a lot of attention for a while, which was interesting. And I'm like, sure, I'll just kind of put this out there. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's interesting the variety of responses that it got because some people were really into it. I'm like, oh my gosh, my colleagues are watching my puppet show. And some people were like, oh, that's the girl with the puppet.
Well, I think what some people were appreciating, they were drawn to, was the fact that you were so lighthearted in some ways about some of the things that people took very seriously. And it was a different thing that they hadn't really experienced. And I like that creative approach because one of the things that I know that you're really focused on is it's more than just the capital profit driven. Let's talk about the numbers. It's also this relationship side of the business that we were starting with earlier, and I think you really get into, I think, a side of the business that some people really don't consider to be part of the accounting, but I do believe it builds the relationships that you're wanting to retain the clients that you have. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, we need to treat each other as humans first. And we attract the people to us that we want to invest our time with by being our full true authentic selves. If we're having to hide ourselves behind a professional veneer and all accounting professionals are just carbon copies of each other of this well-trusted professional, then we don't have any deeper relationships. And it just ends up being about the transactional financial gain of providing a service and receiving money for it rather than creating real human reciprocal relationships.
All right. So you said something there that I'd like to dive into. What do you mean as to the difference between that transactional relationship versus the reciprocal relationship you're hoping for?
Yeah. So if we think about relationships in nature, things like a tree has roots that go into the ground, and those roots, at the very end of those roots, they're connecting with the microbiome in the soil, the mycorrhiza. And that fungal network under the soil can reach out like 100 feet. And the tree might communicate with that fungus and say, hey, I could really use some phosphorus or potassium, and it will reach out and find a rock and pull phosphorus or potassium back and give it to the tree. And the tree will give that fungus a sugar reward for doing that. But it's not they're not keeping score. That's not what it's about. They are in a symbiotic relationship where when one wins, they both win. And it creates a rising tide that raises all ships of a healthy ecosystem overall. And that's what we can thrive in also, a healthy ecosystem where we're actually supporting each other. I hear a lot of people speaking at conferences and coaching and such like that about, oh, you're giving it all away. You're leaving money on the table. I'm in giveaway mode. And I find that the more I generously give, the more I receive. And it all has to do with the attitude that goes into it. If we're so busy keeping score and trying to make sure we get ours, that's a zero-sum game where in order to win, somebody else has to lose. And it really gets us focusing in a scarcity mindset and in competition. Whereas if we are in giveaway mode, we can create a positive sum game where when we help each other, we all win more.
So what I'm hearing you say is you're in that giving mode, as you mentioned, and you believe that you have a lot to offer. And as you give in the relationship, you believe that it's going to then cause maybe a connection, maybe a loyalty that they're going to then bring to the relationship that says, I really love, Ingrid, what you're doing for me, and I can't give it up. Please continue to help me. And you're looking at it more than just as a financial transaction. You're viewing it as a relationship. They're now involved, you're embedded, you're engaged with them. And like you said, it's going to be that sum that's going to rise the tides. So I'm curious. One of the things that I find very interesting is you sometimes talk about values and how in some instances you feel people are compromising those values. You feel that those are very integral to your success. What are you referring to? What are you saying is being compromised, or you've seen perhaps be compromised that you're unwilling to let go of?
Oh, wow. So there's so many layers and levels to this. One of the beautiful things that I actually learned in the Woodard Institute when I was taking classes there, I got to take Joe's class on operational advisory and management advisory courses, and he got deep into value setting, which is really,
Mhm.
really great. And one of the things that I learned is that values is synonymous with behaviors. If we are not living our values, really behaving the way that we say that we value, that's just lip service. That's not values. So people might say that they value their family above all else, but if they're working 60, 80-hour weeks, in or out of tax season, is that really where they're putting their time and energy and focus? What is that imbalance? And people talk about work-life balance, work-life harmony, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But that balance, that harmony is really underrooted with the values. It's like Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
We can have a strategy for how we think we want to behave and find all of the apps to make things more efficient. But if we don't have the culture built on what we believe in and how we want to show up in those beliefs in our daily lives in a full integral way, integrity, sharing the root of the word integer, it means to be whole. If we're
Yeah.
not bringing our whole selves to the game, we're not in integrity. We need to be living our beliefs. And by living our beliefs, we will attract to us the people who share those values and beliefs. And that's how we create community.
Now, one of the things I want to bring into this then is just yesterday I was having a conversation and it was regarding success does require sacrifice. And as success requires sacrifice, we couple it with this discussion about values, how sometimes we are perhaps compromising our values. How would you kind of equate the two? How does compromise as it relates to values compare to sacrifice as it relates to decisions that need to be made in order to be successful? Is there any correlation there?
Oh, Roger, you're going to love this. So, this was not anything we talked about before, but you
No.
just used a couple of my favorite words. Did you know that the word sacrifice literally means to make sacred? It has nothing to do with giving something up. It has everything to do with creating what is sacred in our lives. And so, if we think about sacrifice as, wow, what does it look like to offer, give, and receive in that reciprocal relationship, and recognize that these reciprocal relationships are based upon my deeply held values and beliefs, whatever it is that is sacred to me. We can be living whatever is sacred to us. So for some people that might have some kind of religious connotation, for other it's more spiritual, it's whatever it is to you. But those sacrifices, it really just depends on our attitude going into it. And compromise is that thing that we do where nobody actually gets what they want. What does it look like to go about it with a different attitude and try to create those win-wins rather than being in that scarcity mindset and feeling like we're having to give things up all the time? Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, talks about how the last human freedom is our ability to choose our attitude in any situation. We may not be able to choose our circumstances or even our emotions, which are largely chemical reactions in our bodies that are automatic, but we can always choose whether to have a positive attitude that supports us, or we can have a negative attitude that is not working for us, even in the face of certain death or torture, which he gets into in the book. It's kind of,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
But
he's actually coming up from the concentration camps. He was actually
mhm,
there. And what you're right, what Victor is addressing is the one thing that you do have absolute control over. That's your attitude.
yeah. So those ideas of sacrifice and compromise, they're all based in attitude. And if we can shift our attitude around them, the entire game changes.
So, as you're talking about sacrifice and compromise, let's go to the client level then.
Mhm.
How do we find these ideal clients that align with our values, our interests, our goals, and can actually be that, have that reciprocal relationship that we were just talking about that's beyond the transaction that we're actually doing as to the services that we're providing? How do you find that perfect client? What do you need to do in your marketing? What do you need to do in your engagement to ensure that the relationship starts on the right foot?
Yeah. So it starts with knowing what your values, interests, and goals are. If you haven't put the thought into really like doing the inner work of what are my values? Have I talked with my family about my values and what are our shared values? What is the change that we want to be and create in the world? How do I put those values forth into my business and make sure that I'm bringing on team members that also share my values? Because if our team members don't share our values, we're going to be rowing in different directions and the boat's just going to be spinning in circles. It's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
Once you've got that solid foundation built of values within ourselves, values within our close family and friends, values within our teams, putting those values out in your marketing, excuse me, in marketing so that you're attracting to you the customers that share your values. And those customers then become community. And for me, I decided to niche in my business in the tours and activities industry
Okay.
because I cloned my favorite client. Excuse me for just a moment. I need to drink a little water. I had one client in that industry who became one of my best friends. We're still friends.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? I want more clients like this one. And I sat down with him and I basically interviewed him going through ideas of what is it that he loves about our services and the work that we're doing together? What's been the big game changers for him in the things that we've been doing with him and his company? How could we be offering better service? And this was all back in, I think, 2016. So shortly after that whole thing with Firm of the Future and everything else, like just learning, growing, it was running to keep up with all of it. But I really got to see, okay, what's working. And I started focusing on that industry and managed to create some educational materials that were specific to that industry. Got some speaking gigs at industry conferences, things like
Nice.
that. And then in 2020, COVID happened and the
Yeah.
tourism and activities industry completely went away. And that gave me the opportunity to shift my focus to working with accounting professionals. It was just what's been really fascinating to me in the last year, though, is here I'd switched my focus. I kind of changed my focus entirely. And then just in the last year or so, tours and activities companies have been totally organically coming back to me because I established myself as the expert in that industry. And suddenly they're asking me to speak at their conferences again. And I didn't even go looking for it. Like, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm finding myself with more work than I quite know what to do with. Frankly, it's been pretty great. And I'm not even doing the back end bookkeeping and accounting anymore. I'm focusing on financial workflow design, coaching, consulting, and um, referring out the back end stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, niching is a great way to do it. I love hanging out with tour professionals.
Yeah, you said all of that without using that word until the very end. Obviously, you niched your services into the tourism industry. You had that 2020 experience where obviously was affected by the economy. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, was that intentional? You had interviewed your ideal client, the one that you were having success with. As you're going through that interview, you identified, well, if I want more of this same type of client, I need to actually have this clear definition in mind and target them. But was that at the time an intentional niching effort, or was that just a process you just naturally were going through and it turned out that you niched your services?
It was a very intentional niching effort.
Okay.
It was not an exclusivity at that time. It
Uh-huh.
was a focus of where do I want to place my marketing efforts. I would still take in other clients, and often I would find that those other clients were not a fit for what I really wanted to be creating. At this point, I am niching a lot more exclusively. When I work with financial workflow design, those sorts of things, it's generally a tours activities company. And my primary focus at this point is on the coaching services I do with accounting professionals.
Wonderful, wonderful. And one of the things I really appreciated you stating is that niching does not mean you're exclusive. It does not mean you're excluding other types of businesses. And I think that's very important. What it is it's that you're becoming very specific and clear in some of the messaging you're doing to target or hone in on a particular industry that you want to actually service. So I like how you were able to distinguish that niching doesn't mean you're excluding. So I like that part.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to also dive into here is, as you were growing your business and you mentioned BNI at the beginning with the giver's gain philosophy. You obviously have that mindset of, I just want to give and have that abundance. When you came back and saw that as the industry started to grow again after COVID, they came searching for you. Do you feel that it was actually then a result of the work that you did years previously?
Absolutely. All of those seeds that I planted years and years before were germinating. And
Yep.
funny little side note, as you just mentioned, Giver's Gain, which is the title of Ivan Meisner's book. Ivan Meisner is the founder of BNI.
Yes.
Um, Ivan Meisner was a guest on my puppet show. So if you want to check that out on the Ask a Bookkeeper YouTube, it's still up there. You can see Ivan Meisner interviewed by Penny the Practical Professional, which was pretty entertaining. But to get to your actual question, Roger, I know I'm forgetting the question. Say it
It was
again.
the seeds. I just wanted to
Oh, yeah,
confirm. I
those
wanted
seeds.
my listeners to hear that what you did years ago paid off.
Oh, it's
I want
so
you to point out that it was worth the effort, because
yes.
even though immediately it wasn't as obvious that what you were doing was helpful, it came back around years later as they then came searching for you.
So the way that they end up coming searching for me, people talk about the sales conversations and, trying to close the deal. I don't have a filter. I have a website that I haven't updated in years. I think that there might be still a MailChimp newsletter sign up on it. I have not sent a MailChimp newsletter in years. I don't do any marketing. I'm like the cryptid in the woods that people hear about. And when they come to me, it's like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And like the deal's already closed by the time they reach out to me. Like they're yeah, it's kind of funny. My reputation precedes me and I don't really do any marketing anymore.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to just kind of tap into that is the fact that I feel a lot of us, from a marketing point of view, presume that there's this quick turnaround, that a lot of the work that we need to do has this sales cycle of days or weeks or months. And that's very valid. I mean, that's how we need to run our businesses, putting forth that effort. We're hopefully with that spigot getting some results quickly so that we can run our businesses. But I wanted to draw attention to the fact that there's a lot of what we're doing here that is credibility based. It's something that you're building as a persona. People get to know you. And over time, these things begin to pay off in years. And that's one of the things that I think is so valuable, because something that you did years ago can still bear fruits. And that's one of the things that I think sometimes we fail to realize, that in our marketing, there are things that you're deciding to do today that may have fruits tomorrow, may have fruits in a month, but they're literally things that may come of this, say, years from now. And when you're running a business as long as I have now, I've been with Universal Accounting for 26 years. There's nice things that come of things that I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that are still bearing fruits. And that's one of the things that I thought you kind of brought to the surface there.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fruits that they're bearing are so much easier than having to keep up with this marketing machine.
Yeah. Now, you brought up conferences earlier. We've attended a number of them. I've seen you at those. I'm curious, there is something to be said about the quality of the content, what the speakers say and what we learn, but there's also something to be said about the networking and the camaraderie, the friendships that are made there. Can you speak to that?
Oh, yeah. Just being present and getting to know other accounting professionals and having amazing conversations. Like, I think too, it's been a couple years since I've been to Scaling New Heights, but the last one that I was at, just meeting somebody over breakfast, and we ended up falling into this amazing conversation about quantum physics. And just blowing my mind. Like, there are so many brilliant people in our community, and we would never know, like, oh, okay, so you're working for this software app and you have your doctorate in what now? Like, every single one of us has these amazing and beautiful nuances. And I'm a total nerd. I really enjoy hanging out with really smart people and hearing their stories, and conferences are a wonderful way to do that. And I wouldn't get to meet a lot of those people if I didn't show up. Showing up is half the battle.
That's right. Yeah, the last one you and I were at, we were at Appy Camp, so that was quite fun. We looked at the stars that one evening, so that was quite
Oh,
nice.
it was lovely.
It was, it was. So as it relates to this, everyone has a story. Values do matter, but as it relates to you personally, I'm just kind of curious. You went out on this entrepreneurial journey back in 2008, started your company. Clearly, you didn't know where it was going to take you, but in hindsight, I'm wondering, what would you tell that younger self about this journey? What would you give them as advice as to be aware of this, but more importantly, why does it matter? How's it benefited you?
If I could have been more intentional about my values and the inner work, from the very beginning, most of us, when we start our entrepreneurial journey, we're looking around at everybody else and trying to figure out, how do I make this work? How do I create a successful, sustainable business? And we end up following somebody else's recipe for success. And I didn't know what success was to me at that point. I didn't, I thought that success meant that I was making gads of money. And I've realized since then that that's actually not what success looks like to me. Like, yes, it needs to be sustainable. It needs to actually work and meet the standard of living that I want to create. And I'm not trying to buy a yacht or a private jet or any of those kinds of things. I have a very different metric for success, and it's based upon my culture, my values. And if I could have started with a bit more clarity on what is my version of success, what is it that I really want to build, and be more intentional in that way, I probably would not have, um, I probably would not have made some of the choices that I made for as long as I made them, putting
Hmm.
up with certain clients that I didn't want to put up with. I mean, at this point, it's like I've fired my highest paying client so many times because I'm like, you know what? This isn't worth it. If they're not a fit for my culture, my values, I don't want to put up with them. They're not treating me or my team well. Um, they're doing things in their business that I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be associated with that. There's so many layers and levels of that cultural fit, that values fit. And we know on a deep intuitive level when our values are being crossed. When something is not resonating and it's like, this is not okay with me. If we continue to sacrifice our values on the altar of profit, that perpetuates an unhealthy world. That's one of the reasons I think why people get sick. And it's if we can maintain our values, our energy stays higher, everything is uplifted, and we get to have the quality of life and the relationships that we want to have.
It's an interesting holistic way of looking at things.
I like holistic. Holistic's a good way of looking at things,
Oh yeah.
seeing that
Oh yeah.
everything's connected.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is very important is you come at this realizing that accounting is more than just the numbers. It is a personal, it is a reciprocal relationship. And so I like the fact that you bring those elements into it, because I do fully believe that the relationships that we have with our clients do allow us to retain them longer, service them better, and more importantly, have an impact in their business. So I do like those elements of it. Now, there is something that I think is also very important. You tapped into this idea of initially you were doing the business as it related to just doing what everyone else does. I think there's value there. There's a turnkey element as it relates to business that you can follow to be successful. But to become that 1%, to stand out from the competition, to be someone more than just the accountant, you do need to be authentic, and you need to find what is it that resonates with your clients and kind of balances out with the values that you have. And that then allows you to become that individual within the accounting community that really can be inspiring to others. And that's where you become that thought leader, which I think you have. So that's been wonderful. I do want to ask one last question, and it's regarding the accounting profession. I know that you have some feelings about this, but how do you feel that we can, as a profession, be a vehicle for positive change in the world?
Oh, so we're actually working on that actively, and it's that mindset shift. It's changing the attitude, changing the perspective, recognizing that a lot of the things, whether we like them or not, in our world right now, here's where we look at economics, politics, how the bigger systems of our world operate are often based in those scarcity mindsets that we were talking about earlier, those attitudes that aren't working, zero sum game, where in order to win, somebody else has to lose. And we're pushed into this competition. And we've been programmed into this competition mindset from a very young age. So shifting that attitude, doing the inner work, and asking ourselves, what would it look like to turn the accounting profession into a vehicle for positive change? How can we turn accounting into simply how we account for what we want to be held accountable to? And that it better be more than just money and finance, because there's so much more important out there. True security is not financial. True security is relational. If things really go to crud out of the blue, if there's a natural disaster or something like that goes on, you won't be able to buy food because you can't eat money. It's about the relationships of having community come together and support each other. And that is our true economy. The root of the word economy, eco, means home. How do we root into that community and build something that is more important than money and finance? And how do we account for those things? How can we as accounting professionals start measuring what really matters? And money can be one system that shows us some of those indicators, those KPIs, those key performance indicators, but it's not the only system. How can we also measure other things besides the money and finance? And that's a big part of what we're working on in the Accounting Alchemy Network, which is a grassroots movement that is working to turn the accounting profession into a vehicle for positive change in our world.
You know, the way I would describe what you just expressed is, how often do you find that your clients reach out to you regarding something other than accounting because of the friendship that you've actually built with them,
Mhm.
the connection that you've established, when they feel that they're comfortable enough to discuss with you something other than the accounting? And that's something that I think then is an indicator of more of the relationship than the transactional that you're doing with the client. So that's a good thing to consider. So I like that, Ingrid. Thank you for that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start wrapping a few things up here, and I'm going to emphasize a few things and then come back to you for a closing thought. For my listeners, one of the things that I'd like to share with you is Ingrid was just speaking of the Accounting Alchemy Network, and she's been very kind to actually provide some information regarding this that we'll put in the episode description. But essentially, what I'd like to invite you to go do is check this out. It's actually where you can go find out more about this amazing discussion and group that people are having, the education around what we can as accounting professionals do to bring more value to the relationships that we have and connect better with our clients. So check out the Accounting Alchemy Network and see what it is that this might be for you as you're actually trying to build the relationships with your clients a little bit better and get some conversations going on around that. So that's one of the things I'd encourage you to check out. As well, with Universal Accounting Center, one of the things that we're highlighting today is the turnkey business plan for accounting professionals. It is exactly what it is you can be doing to focus on the marketing, the selling, the pricing, the services that you're offering to ensure that you're also not just getting clients and getting well-paying clients, but more importantly, building the relationships that you need, and most importantly, retaining them as clients over the long haul. Why? Because you have a relationship with them and they see value in the services that you're offering. So go now to the episode description, check out the turnkey business plan, what it is you can be doing to build what I refer to as the premier accounting firm in your area. In addition to that, we have an ebook that I would highly recommend called Your Strategic Accountant. It does speak of what this relationship looks like as you're servicing your clients and how they can better see you as, in fact, that strategic accountant, someone that's doing more than just the numbers. It's actually helping them strategically grow and be successful in their business. And then lastly, a book called Your Profit and Growth Expert. Although it is focused on profit, it is actually focusing on the fact that we're trying as accounting professionals to better service our clients and give them access to the information they need to run their businesses more intelligently. And it's through the fact that we're engaging more with our clients, building that relationship with them, that we're able to better meet them where they are with the needs they have so that we can better retain and service them where they are. So check out that book, Your Profit and Growth Expert, as well. Now, with all that being said, as a summary of our conversation, one of the things I'd like to highlight is the fact that, like so many of us, Ingrid actually started her career going as an entrepreneur into the space of basically starting the business, realizing she had something that she could use to benefit the small business community. And back in 2008, she made that leap. She obviously started getting into that and took that shotgun approach of obviously getting whomever and whatever. But ultimately, she interviewed her ideal client, her favorite client, and found from there that she wanted to focus on the tourism industry. And she obviously then niched her services, realizing that this is something that she could do well, and she could find those clients like that ideal one she already had. In that process, she did not exclude other clients, which I think is healthy and obviously paid off as it came to 2020 when the whole COVID thing reared its head and impacted the tourism industry. Obviously, that's impacting now the niche that she'd targeted, but she obviously was able to then learn from that and ultimately, years later, still benefit from those relationships as they later reached out as an industry asking for her input and contributions at their conferences. I think that's just a telltale of how, with our marketing, with our intentional messaging, we can actually leave a lasting message out there that people can be drawn to even years in the future. So lots of really small tidbits here. I like the part of the conversation where we were talking about the business relationship being more than just transactional, that it was reciprocal. She gave the analogy, for example, of the tree reaching out to the fungus and asking for these different minerals that it's in need of, and that there was this giver's gain idea of abundance. Let's just give, and through that relationship, it's going to be more than just the transactional of the monetary. It's going to be the helping of one another that's going to build the relationship so that it's a lasting one. The other thing that I thought was helpful is just recognizing that she has this group where she's trying to bring this messaging to the accounting community, which I think is great. She is an influencer, she does have a voice, and she clearly stepped beyond the imposter syndrome that she shared at the very, very beginning. So Ingrid, I love what you've shared. What would you leave as a final thought?
I think the final thought is just really going inward and each of us finding our values and putting them out there into the world and being our full, true, authentic selves. And what does it look like for us to empower each other, including our clients and our team members, each of us to be our full, true, authentic selves? It's like Peter Block talks about in his book, Confronting Our Freedom, that true leadership is not about changing someone else's behaviors. Leadership is about confronting others with their freedom, whatever that is for them.
Well, Ingrid, I think what you've just shared there is very helpful because as leaders, that's what we need to be. We need to obviously take the lead with the relationships that we have and introduce people to different lines of thought. Now, as it relates to this, I do want to mention she brought up earlier conferences. We were talking about the power of attending these events. I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It is one that you do need to attend. Why? Because it's there on the stage where we bring the experts, those individuals that are intended to actually help us understand what we can be doing to better service our clients, to work on our business, to get paid what we're worth. So join us so that we can actually help you hear from those experts, things that you can be doing as it relates to marketing, selling, pricing, training your staff, the tech stacks that they're using to work efficiently and be profitable. All of these things are things that you need to hear. But likewise, as we were discussing, Ingrid pointed out the value of the relationships that you have at these conferences. So clearly at GrowCon, you want to actually meet your peers, find those connections, build friendships, and in fact, collaborate. See what it is that you could do together to better service your clients. These are relationships that will last year upon year. In addition, you get to meet the staff at Universal Accounting Center, those individuals on my team that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So go right now to universalaccounting.com. There you'll find the information regarding GrowCon, and I look forward to seeing you there. Register now and enjoy GrowCon as it relates to working on your business. In addition, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast is released each and every week where we actually highlight experts, individuals that have insights as to what we can be doing to work on our business. So subscribe now, set your notifications so each and every week you're notified as to when the new episode is released. But in addition to that, we have put together a playlist, basically the highlights of past conversations with individuals such as Ivan Meisner that she brought up earlier, such as Joe Woodard that was mentioned earlier. These are individuals that I've had on the show that share various things that you need to be hearing as it relates to your business. So take a moment, go to the universalaccounting.com highlight sections of the podcast. It's right in the navigation. In the navigation, go to podcast, go to highlights, and there you'll see these playlists that you can binge listen and hear the things that are applicable to your current situation, whether it's marketing, selling, client onboarding, tech stats, perhaps it's mental health. Whatever those needs are that you're currently experiencing today, go hear from the experts what it is they have to share. In addition to this, I also want to invite you to go to universalaccountingschool.com. If you'd like to apply these principles and others that we're discussing in your business and see what you can do to offer quality bookkeeping, accounting, and tax business or tax services, check out Universal Accounting School. And there, check out what it is that we have as training, certifications, coaching, and support to enable you to confidently and competently offer these services to your clients. And lastly, if you'd like to, you can give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And with all that being said, have a great day, be safe out there, and always remember, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care. Ingrid, that was awesome.
Yay. Thank you.
I enjoyed that. It was a great conversation. Thank you. I'm wanting you now to go to the chat, and in the chat, you're going to record that promo piece that I mentioned.
Okay, let me open that up. There it is. Okay. Okay, start anytime?
Yep.
Hey, this is Ingrid Edstrom. It was so much fun to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed how to create real human relationships with our clients, amongst many other things, including puppets and networking and conferences, and it was just great. So I invite you to come listen and join us.
Ingrid, that was